Welcome everyone. It's that time again. It's the 21st of November. It's Monday and we're back again with our MBX interview series. And boy, we've got a special guest tonight. I was really looking forward to the chat we're going to have tonight, because not only is this person, you know, I've met over the last couple of years at the time of life where I probably needed to meet this person. They're just a beautiful soul, you know, and I bumped into them again here in Cronulla, or Coronella as our Aboriginals say. So we're going to have a fantastic discussion. And guys, so welcome. Thank you for being here at the MBX interview series. Obviously, you know, MBX Institute really help practitioners, therapists and healers rise up to be able to level up their performance as a therapist, as a healer, level up really what it is that they're doing. Because, you know, if you're in this industry because you want to make a difference, you've got a calling, you're doing work which is important. There's so many people out there that need some help, need some support, need that assistance to be able to get over the hurdles and the challenges that we face in daily life. And, you know, community is important. We don't do life by ourselves, we do it with other people. And to know that there's people out there you can count on to help you, I think it makes all of us here a very important breed. And so our job here is to support you on this journey. We've been doing this now for the last 25, 30 years in the field of complementary medicine, personal growth, human performance. And, you know, we come to you with these interview series because I get the opportunity to actually have a conversation with colleagues, people I've met along the way, people that have supported me, and to actually help you on your journey. Because, you know, as we share our stories, what I've learnt is that as we share our stories, what we think is most personal to us, and sometimes we don't share our journey, is actually general to other people. And people heal by hearing the challenges that you went through and getting over them. And it makes it possible for them to get to the other side as well too. So tonight, again, as I said, a very special night. I met this beautiful soul a couple of years ago, actually probably 3 years ago now it was, when I was going through a challenge in my life. I was going through a separation with, you know, my wife Michelle, 25 years married. But at that time, my dad passed away as well too. So a lot was happening. And you know, it's funny, I met this lady in a jewellery store, right? She was doing some part-time work in a jewellery store. And I went in to get something for my ex-wife now. And we had this wonderful conversation. You know, just when you meet someone, just connect. And it just happened that we had so many common interests, common backgrounds in terms of our training, our personal development, doing stuff with Tony Robbins, with Brendan Bouchard, just in this work of helping people, mindfulness, mind-body work. And we just clicked, and it just happened that every time I go for a walk in this beautiful esplanade here in Cronulla, she's there every morning, 6 o'clock, maybe sometimes earlier, and she runs a yoga class right on that point. And she's going to tell us about that. And she's basically a neighbour now. I walk up, I get out of the elevator, and she's next door, but that's another story. So guys, I want to introduce you to a very special guest, a very special friend. As I said, not only is she in this field, but she does a lot of work with grief and loss, with people who are going through these challenges in their life, and we all go through at some stage. And she has a very special program to actually help people get over that and be able to move into the next stage of their life. So everyone, I want you to put your hands together. Let's bring on down Leah Barthell. Leah, come on down. Let's get some sound effects going for you. Hey! Everyone celebrating Leah is in the house. All right, you're going to explosion. I got all these sound effects going. I'm quite excited. I got all these sound effects happening. So, Leah, thank you for being here today. We're just listening. If anyone's watching live, just let us know that you're watching live and where you're watching from. And if you're catching on the replay, #replay. And look, we're going to have a conversation here with Leah and with you guys. And geez, we're here for about half an hour, but I think this might be a little bit longer. So, Leah, thank you so much for being in the house. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Arthur. It's great to be here.
Geez, you're looking all, you got that green dress on. It's a healing colour, right? You got it on for a reason, yeah?
Heart chakra.
Heart chakra, absolutely, we'll be talking about today. So Leah, thank you again for being in. As you know, we have these conversations with different people in the industry, some people that you know and you've seen in the past. And it's really an opportunity for us to just have a chat about, I suppose, the work that we do, the work that you do, your experiences, your journey. And if someone's listening today that needs to be listening, they'll probably be on here, or they'll probably catch on the replay. Or you know what, they're probably listening in incognito, not wanting to be on a post, because how many people are watching and listening and looking for something, but they don't want to let people know about that. They don't want to publicly put their hand up for help, but they are searching for something. And I'm sure that if they'll be listening to something today, and if they want to reach out, We'll put your details in here very soon. They can reach out to you because the work that you do is so important. So yeah, look, let's give it over to you. Tell us the Leah Barthell story and tell us a little bit about yourself and really, how did you get to be wearing that green dress and doing heart-centered work?
Well, Arthur, there's a saying that do what you know well. And grief and loss is something that has always been a part of my life. But 10 years ago, it was kind of spearheaded. And anyone that does personal growth is usually looking for something that is, I don't know, I think when you do the personal growth, you look for solutions. You look for something that is going to work for you. And I hadn't found this thing until I moved into grief recovery method. So when I was 2, my dad was killed in a car accident. And so as a young child, I was brought up by a widow who was extremely strong, probably one of the most strongest women I've ever met in my life. And she was amazing. I was an only child. Fast forward to 2011, and ironically, we were at a motivational course, and I'd asked her so many times to come with me, and she said, "No, darling, not my thing. Anyway, go and have a good time." But on this occasion, she actually decided to come with me, and we had a break, and I went to get a glass of water for us. And as I was walking towards her, I could feel that something was really off. And the left side of her face dropped, and she just looked at me and started slurring her words. And as I got closer, I dropped the water, and she just said, "Sorry, darling, but my speech has just gone funny." And she ended up having an aneurysm, bleed above the right side of the brain, and was taken to St Vincent's Hospital. And then 2 days later, we turned machine off. That just sent me in a whole world of shock, pain, emotions that I never even knew, even though I'd experienced grief with Dad. With Dad, it was more the loss of hopes, dreams, and expectations, the loss of him walking me down the aisle, the loss of him being there to be a grandfather to my kids, him showing me how I should be treated by a man. All of those things were what I missed the most from him. But with Mum, I just felt like I was chopped in half. I felt like I lost me. And I actually really questioned who I was, full stop, because she'd been there ever since the day I was born. So I didn't know how to do life without her.
And how long ago was that? When did that happen to you, Leah?
It would have been 2011.
Okay.
And then in 2013, my marriage broke down. And at the same time, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So we went through that. And that was really probably a catalyst to, that was around the time that I started training with Tony Robbins and made the big decision to sign up and do his Mastery University. So I did 3 courses with him, and that was life-changing. It was so amazing. It started me on a path of where I wanted to be. One of the things that I really wanted to do was create a charity event around the topic of organ donation, because my mom was extremely passionate about organ donation. She wanted to spare anyone else going through the grief that she had experienced when Dad died. So if she could save another life, why wouldn't she? So that was a big driver for her. And so then I went on to create the butterfly ball in honor of Chris Barthell. And that was amazing. But that was a dream that became a reality from Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins.
Wow. Okay, so you fast forward quite a bit there. Let's come back to it, right? We want the gap, right? Because, so your mum passed away, but that was at a time where you experienced your mum through your life. She was there supporting you. She was backbone, as you said. And
yeah,
your dad, you were too when he passed away. So you really need a chance to experience it, other than those girls, the dreams that a girl would have of her dad, as you said. So
yes.
And so when your mum passed away, then 2 years later, your marriage fell apart. And so when you're thinking about that, how did your mum passing, I don't want to say contribute to that, but those circumstances led to us being different people, because it's now the first time you're an orphan, right? I know when my dad passed and then my mum passed a year later, it's like, I'm an orphan.
Yeah. You hit the nail, you get it.
And you look for the people who are around you, and you could be with someone for such a long time, and then maybe that's where you realise there's something more, right? And like all of us, we end up in a large room, jumping up and down to music in some sort of personal development, because we're seekers of growth, we're seekers of nurturing the soul, we're soul seekers. We want to live a soulful life, a fulfilling life, and we gravitate towards these programs. So you went on that journey, and that started a healing inside you and a journey, I suppose, of self-discovery, finding who you really were.
Absolutely. And as I said, I had to work out who I was, but Mum was such an integral part of our lives. Like, she was a local school teacher at Miranda. She taught there for over 38 years. But my children went to that school. So dealing with going to school after, and she had been there when I attended that school. So that school had so many memories, and going there and her not being there, there were so many different triggers that would, really take over. It was that something that we say in grief recovery method is that it's an end in a familiar pattern or behavior that we've always had and we've always known, and that is part of what creates the grief, because that normality no longer is there. And yes, so we would see her every day because we had such a close relationship, even if it was for 10 minutes, and I'd say, duck in and I've got dinner waiting for you. And so she didn't have to go home after school and cook, because she was cooking for one, whereas I was cooking for four. So, little things like that were huge. But then when she died, I wasn't angry, but I was lost. I think I was lost. And you just hit the nail on the head when you said about being an orphan. With being an only child, I have an amazing family and extended and friends. I am blessed beyond compare, but it didn't negate the feeling that I had. And I kept trying to say, don't be so stupid, Leah, and squash that feeling. But that was really how I felt. Part of why we're so passionate about organ donation is the first birthday after Mum passed was my 40th. And I was really, really struggling. I'm a very positive person, as you know, even before Tony Robbins. Always try to see the bright side of things. And I didn't want to be here. I just could hear Mum saying, you got me through losing your dad. It was you. And I was just going, that's a hell of a lot of pressure to put on my kids. And it was about 2 weeks after my 40th, and I received a letter from the girl who got my mum's lungs. And we always knew she was 29 years of age. She had 3 small children. 2 of the children were similar age to my children. So that gave me so much solace, knowing that someone had, those children still had their mum. But in this letter, she said, my children are eternally grateful that I'm here to love and protect them, especially my 6 and 9-year-old, as they've already lost their father. And that was like, I was struggling with feeling like an orphan at 40. Yet, had this woman not got my mum's lungs, there would have been a 6 and a 9-year-old that would have been orphans. And that felt like the biggest sign from Mum going, get your backside off that ground and you start to live your life, and you're not meant to be there. And that was a massive turning point for us. It really was. But to be fair, I had expectations even of my husband to love and support me in a certain way. And what I now know is, how could he? Because he has both his parents. So he hasn't experienced it. he doesn't know what it feels like. He has extended like a sister, so it was different. And I've actually had to do a lot of work around that too.
Wow. I didn't think of it that way. That's yeah. Now I've got to go and do some work myself.
So you're signing up for Grief Recovery Method
I
tomorrow?
might have to come and see you about that. But, you know, because it's interesting. You know, you do all this work and you're in this field, and I suppose being in this field and challenging yourself to show up every day and serve and be there to help people on their journey is what keeps us going. But self-care is important too, right? And even though we think we've done stuff in the middle of the night or when you go for a walk, you know,
Yes.
beautiful place over there when we go for a walk, right? You go for a walk, and I might just put myself in front of that picture and talk to you that way. This is Coronella, right? We'll have to talk about Coronella. And you know, if it still triggers you, there's still something that has yet to heal. And you know, we're talking about unprocessed life experiences, and I think this is what this grief recovery method does. Right now, I want to know more about that, not only personally for myself, but you know, you went on this journey, and because you did a lot of other mindfulness stuff too, yoga and everything else, and you've got into supporting the mind, the body, and the soul.
Yeah.
But how did it lead to doing this technique? And basically now you've got, you know, I think it's just around the corner up there, you've got your own professional consulting rooms, right? And that's where you are right now, and people can come and see you and have these counselling or consultations with you, actually get through what it is that they're going through. So how did you think, well, when I say think, how did you end up in that specific, with that process and that technique, and really using that as your, it's probably your main line of work, would that be fair?
Yeah. Well, I think I've got several different aspects. So where it all started was, we say that we usually grow through our biggest pain points, those challenges, or when we are the most uncomfortable, we're on the verge of our biggest growth. And I had a really, really challenging experience the 1st of January 2017. And I sat down and my ego kicked in. And I was going, oh, I can't believe this situation, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things I've learned through my energetic and clairvoyant healing is that to sit down and automatic cry. So I sat down and I penned this book. And 2 weeks later, I was made redundant from the job that I was in at the time. There was no payout. It was just like, okay, it's time to move. And I normally would have gone, why me, or what's going on here? But I felt like my job in that role had come to the end. Like I really felt like I'd achieved what I was there to achieve, and it was time to move on. And I'd written the book 2 weeks before, and it was kind of the catalyst. And it actually said to me, okay, if you could pick any job in the world, what would it be? What would you do? And then I thought about what I'm passionate about. So I used to be a dance teacher, but I was passionate. I'd become more passionate about yoga. I'd written the book, so I wanted to have that self-published. I wanted to teach yoga. So I went about doing a small business course, did a self-publishing course, did my 200-hour yoga teacher training. And then that sort of led me to do the ball again. So we did the ball again that year, and we raised about 32,000. And then in December 2017, we published our book, A Gift Before I Go. And it is a book to talk to children about organ donation, so that families who are starting their journey as a donor family can, it's a really challenging conversation to have with a child. So this actually helps the parents and the children. But then from that, there was a few other which helps the parents, things that came through. And that there was a few other, that was in particular COVID. And when I was sitting there, as you said, I'd met you and I was working in the jewelry store at the time, offsetting that against my business because I'd set Kindred Gift by Leah Barthell. But then I had a moment where I went, there's something more. And another uncomfortable moment. And I penned a poem called The Path to Purpose. And actually, a I'm going to read it for you now because it's
Oh, I
kind of
love
my
it.
mission
Absolutely.
statement.
Yeah.
And that way you will understand why I've taken the course I have. So it's called The Path to Purpose.
So just before you read it, because so you're using the work you've done energetically and your clairvoyant skills. So when you just feel you need to write, you write. It's like an automatic writing, you called it. And I love you call it automatic writing because Milton Erickson.
That's subconscious.
Yeah.
So
Milton Erickson called these auto-hypnotic moments, right? Flashes of brilliance, connecting to that, where does your intuition, your spirit lie? It's in your unconscious or subconscious, right? You don't do it consciously. It's something that's just done. And you just go with the flow. You don't question it. You just go with the flow.
And it's actually about releasing the mind and not the need to control, the need to actually go, is it right? Or is it exactly what I need to say? Now, with the book, I went back the next day and I went, there's not a page that joins that to that. So I needed to create another page, but that was it. It was pretty much just evolved. And sometimes I question where it came from. So we just be in the moment and we enjoy it. So
love it.
yeah.
All right, let's hit the poem. The poem.
So it's called The Path to Purpose. And says, I'm calling in my life. I'm knowing who I am, reaching for the stars and creating all I can. I surrender and let go and cut the strings that had control. I've found my place called home, and now I feel whole. It's time to shine and be alive and keep your energy so you thrive, to walk the walk and talk the talk, to hold their hands and heal the hurt, to start afresh through all the pain, to find a new normal and live again, to let go of the guilt, the despair and the distress, to walk your feet upon a new address. The path that leads to purpose, the purpose to achieve, to grow and serve and help and heal, especially when we grieve. Today, I set on this path knowing who I am, what I'm meant to do, how to live. It's all part of the plan.
I've got to put some sound effects here because we've got to get everyone cheering on that one. And look, everything that was just beautiful. You mentioned though, walk the walk and walk the talk. All right, and I think that's so important today with people being in this field because, as you know, being in this field over a decade and now 3 decades for me, the landscape's changed so much, right? The way we do things today is different to how it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago with technology and everything else. And people today can do a weekend training and they jump up and down. They're a wellness coach, they're a health coach, and they change the planet. Love their passion and their zest, but they've yet to have the experience, right? And go through the journey, and we jump into this false sense of confidence, being hubris. It's the Dunning-Kruger effect. And those who actually know the most, we start to doubt ourselves and we suffer from imposter syndrome, right? I mean, that's an interesting process. So we work on a concept called, the rise of the modern day practitioner. And the modern day practitioner is one who walks the walk, who walks the talk, who's done the inner work and the outer work, who's confident in their own skin, not in a hubris nature where it's a false sense of confidence. Confidence because they've achieved the results, they've acquired the skills, they've done it before because they're competent. So many people act that they're confident, but they've yet to do it. And if they had to do it, they think they can do it, but when it comes to the chase, it's like, I haven't learned the skills yet. And so they haven't put themselves out there. And yet, when you put yourself out there, as we know, confidence comes from competence. That's the new age, when it's a new age, the modern day practitioner. And you're really an example of that because you've been in this field for a decade and longer, not just overnight. And it's the story that we've gone through that's healing for other people. And that's that poem. I don't know what else to say. I'm going to be back to you. I'm taking your limelight here.
No, it's true. And I even go back to what I said about how could I have an expectation of someone to support me through it when they hadn't gone through it. Like a lot of the time people say you don't need to, but there are parts that absolutely you do. And the grief recovery method has taught me. So what happened was after I wrote that, Path to Purpose, I felt like my journey was towards being a funeral celebrant. That's where I thought I was headed. And I realized pretty quickly that wasn't it. And all of a sudden, grief recovery method was in my face. Like I'd seen it originally 6 years ago, but it was in my face. And I am the sort of person, if I see something once, I take note, twice take action. And that was the thing that made me really take action. I had a discovery call with the licensee of Australasia, and I had hairs sticking up on my arms because her experience was very similar to what Mum and I had experienced that day that Mum collapsed. And it resonated, and it was like, this is where you're meant to be. And so I just took a massive leap of faith and jumped out of the jewelry store I was at and went straight into it. And that was pretty big because just prior to writing The Path to Purpose, I'd actually gone through breast cancer. And so it was very daunting to actually be out and be that exposed and take a new path. But I knew and trusted that that was exactly where I was meant to be. And that's what grief recovery method is about. Everyone thinks that grief is just about losing a loved one, but it's not. It's the loss of a relationship, whether it be a divorce or a breakup. It's the loss of health. I know I had that with the breast cancer and an aneurysm prior to that. It's the loss of a job that you've worked really hard for. It's the loss of self. So many women out there have spent many years putting so much time and energy into their families, and they don't know who they are. So it's about really realizing what we need to enhance and what we need to let go of. And that's part of why I do what I do with grief recovery method.
And yeah, one thing's really, with everything that you're saying, everything's popping for me right now, but you mentioned it a couple of times. How can we expect someone to be there for us when they haven't been through it themselves? It's not just grief or loss, it's anything that you might go through in your life, right? So any challenge that you might have with your health, any challenge that you might have with your career, your relationships with your loved ones, your kids, your family, and from a pet passing or whatever the case may be, if you haven't gone through it yourself, I mean, we can be there, and I think we tend to offer sympathy. We get caught up with the other person as opposed to being empathetic, understanding the situation, right? Because we haven't been there. I think we can have a better understanding by having gone through it and understand what that person needs. And sometimes it's just space or just being there. And so, when I think back all the challenges I've had, and I've looked, well, me expecting to have support from other people in my life, or looking back at it now, well, if they hadn't gone through it themselves, how can I expect them to understand me? And also, how important is that for
they
people?
Would have said,
yeah,
like,
how important is that? Go on. Yeah.
People say things because we're not taught to grieve. So if you think of things that people have said, and it may be true what they're saying, but it's not helpful, and it doesn't actually help us heal. Like a prime one would be a loss of a parent. Like my mum, it was shocking circumstances, and she was only young, she was 60. But I know with my grandmother, it was like 85, and people would say, oh, they had a good life. At the end of the day, yeah, that's true. That information is true. But does it heal the grief? And we get told what we should be doing or how we should be thinking, or you need to stay strong for others, or you need to, time's going to heal, or all those paradigms that we hear or we've been brought up with. But at the end of the day, that was still my grandmother, and that was still someone that impacted my life so hugely that you don't just get over it because everyone tells you they've had a good life. And they're the things that you would probably think back to, some of the things you were told when your dad passed or your mum passed, or, oh, but you're an adult now, you're not an orphan, or, there's other things that people
look,
say.
Leah, we've got a lot of people watching, and I just want to acknowledge them as well too. We got Patricia, we've got Crystal, we've got Nadine's here. She's saying beautiful story, thank you, with love hearts.
And Nadine.
We got Rachel's here, we got Michael's series here, we've got all these people watching, and I want to just reach out, and I want, maybe because this is healing for us to share, right? And I'm sure everyone here, and I know some of the stories, some of the people that are watching, have you lost someone close to you recently, maybe in the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And maybe just acknowledging it, just putting in the chat and saying, hey, I get it. Here's what I'm dealing with, what I thought I dealt with. Just sometimes just letting it out is what we need to do, right? And Michael's got there. He needs to listen to this closer. No, you do, Michael. That's why I'm saying this. I think you might have to connect with this beautiful side here, Mr. Siri. And so, look, because we want to keep on talking, but I just want to get this in before we do. If people want to reach out and get hold of you, Leah, what's the best place? How do they get hold of you? Because, geez, we want to talk more about the charity work that you do and everything else, and the stuff you do in the community. But how do they get hold of you so we can get our girls to put it in the chat here?
So if they go to www.kindredgift.com.au, that's my website. They can contact me through there, or they can book a discovery call if they particularly want to talk about grief recovery method. That's a 15-minute free chat, just to have a chat, because I also want to see if the program's right for them.
Yeah.
So we can have a chat around that to see if it is a good fit. And then through Facebook and Instagram, either under Leah Barthell or Kindred Gift by Leah Barthell. And the book in regards to organ donation is on Instagram and Facebook under A Gift Before I Go. So there's several different portals too.
We'll put all that there. We'll get the girls to put it up there right now. So kindredgift.com, and obviously A Gift Before I Go, the book, and obviously .au. Yeah, we got that right. It's up there now, and then obviously just connecting with you on Facebook land and Instagram as well too, and just having a chat, booking that 15-minute call with you, just to just have a chat and see whether you can support them on the next phase of their journey. So, guys, if anyone's here wanting to connect with this woman, I really highly recommend having a chat with Leah. As I said, not only do I catch her every morning doing her yoga, she might have to talk about that in this point right there. And there's the sunrise and some beautiful photos on her Facebook. But she's basically a neighbour now. Like, she pops in next door and visits my neighbour. That's another story. We won't get to that one, right? But you chose a real good-looking guy there, right? Okay, so he must have had his work cut out for him did he have his work cut out? Or did it just happen straight away?
No, history is a beautiful thing. That's all I'll say on that.
And look, so it's just a joy for me to know that, we get a chance to bump into each other, chat, and now we're on here just talking about what
There's
it is.
There's no accidents, are there?
Yeah.
I think that's in the realm that we're in, and what we try to do and how we try to create change and come from a place of service. People come into your life for that reason, season, lifetime. So we don't understand why, but I think the biggest thing is being open to it and actually really realizing that there's a lot of times we connect with people and it might be one snippet of information that we take away and that just can be life-changing for us. So
tell me then, the grief recovery method. Mm-hmm. So if someone wants to come and see you, what is that process? Is it obviously a number of consultations? Are you taking through a journey?
So it's 7 sessions, and so I can do it online or face-to-face, totally dependent on the person. But with those 7 sessions, to be fair, grief's messy and it's hard and it does take work. And, you brought up a beautiful point before how, you've done 30 years, but you still have moments that take you by surprise, and even though you've done the work. And that's been the biggest thing I've realized probably in the last year, is that even though I've done so much work already, I'm not immune to it. And it does come out of left field, whether it be a piece of music that comes on. But the difference is it doesn't have the capacity to derail me and put me into a different state. I actually allow the feelings. I allow myself to feel how I feel. I allow myself to sit in that discomfort. I allow myself to be vulnerable. I don't make myself wrong. If I want to lie on the bed for that day, I do it, but I'll get up and function the next day. But in saying that, those days are few and far between now, because of the work that I've done.
As they say, right, you got to feel the wound to heal the wound. When we push it away, keep it at arm's distance and dissociate from the emotion or the wound, that's how we create pain, and that's how we create dis-ease.
We mask it.
Right? Yeah.
We, in grief recovery method, we call them STIRBs, short-term.
And it's interesting, because we've got these slogans, toughen up, or men don't cry, or you can't show your emotion. So people develop this false sense of confidence where now hashtag you got this, and they got the, they call it self-love, right? But I think it's misplaced self-love, because it's at the expense of them allowing themselves to be open and vulnerable to heal. Yeah. And that's what I think when we talked about Dunning-Kruger effect before, people don't get it that they don't get it. They think they've got this because they've been conditioned, they get a pat in the back, no worries, you can do this. But hold on a second, maybe you just got to sit in it. Maybe you just need to be in that feeling, in that emotion, you need to allow yourself to be open and be vulnerable. And there's a quote from Rumi, right, that I've always used, right? Allow your heart to be broken over and over and over and over and over and over again until it remains open.
I love it. Because if we don't do that, like, we can actually sit there and go, I'm never going to love again because I could get hurt. But what you miss out, even if it might only be for 6 months or a year or whatever it is, you can miss out on the most beautiful experience because you're too scared to take that next step. And that's a big, big thing. I don't know anyone, especially when we get to our age, that hasn't been hurt. If you haven't, that's awesome. But, we all have. So sometimes we've got to show that vulnerability and be open to it, to be allowed to experience some of the most amazing experiences.
And that's why we miss out on those experiences. And, again, today, mental health is a big talking point today, right? And we're in November, so it's about men's health, all right? So mental health, it's a big talking point. And yet I think, if you go on YouTube and look at keywords, it's like one of the most common keyword searches now are emotional trauma. Like, it's almost chic now, and it's an excuse that people use. I've got trauma. I'm dealing with my emotional trauma. So people are starting to use these traumas as an excuse, and it's like, oh, I'm someone now, I've got trauma, all right? As opposed to, hey, well, we all have. But if you do have that trauma, what responsibility are you taking to actually heal that trauma so you can be a better person today in the decisions that you make? Because we don't realise that, well, they don't get it, that the decisions that we're making today are clouded and skewed by the experiences that we had in the past.
And it's a story they attach to that meaning too. Like, as soon as you hear the word trauma, you go, like, the day that my mum died was traumatic. Like, it was a fog. It was traumatic. But I actually don't allow myself to use that term because I just feel like the connotation around it, and I'm not negating other people's trauma. This is a choice that I've made for me. But I feel like, I grieve. I was in shock. I had loss. I had trauma, but I don't focus on the trauma because I don't want to stay stuck in the trauma either. So I think sometimes, even with what we teach is the BS, we call it the BS, but it's belief systems, the things that we're taught, and I've actually displayed some of these things myself indirectly without even realizing. For example, like one of the myths is that we grieve alone, or we should be grieving alone and behind closed doors. And it's actually not helpful. It doesn't help us to actually move through that grief, but it's something that we actually have been taught or have also taught. And I have done this, but for example, if I was cooking dinner and my kids were whingy or, crying or whatever, if you're going to whinge, go to your bedroom and cry in there. Like, just because I was annoyed, as opposed to taking that moment and getting down on their level and saying, talk to me, what's going on? You're angry? You're allowed to be angry. You're sad? You're allowed to be sad. But it was just like, it's an inconvenience and we don't want to deal with it. So we just palm it off. And it may not have been something that dramatic that they needed me for, but it was just, I've taught them in that moment that if they're really sad or upset, they go to their bedroom. Therefore, grieve alone.
That's right. Lock it in, don't open up.
Don't open up. Or someone's there, but they're not listening either.
And so we
that's
attract
why,
those people in our life again and again and again because we need to heal from that
yeah,
experience.
yeah.
Wow.
Well, sometimes you can have someone listening to you, but you're not heard. So there's lots of different aspects of that. And that's part of what we teach.
Yeah, look, Leah, we've gone 40 minutes and we can go on
Oh,
another 40 minutes.
already.
Now, where did the time go, right? So, look, I just want to say thank you to everyone that's been listening to us. You know, we have quite a few people, a lot of comments here, and I'm sure Leah will get around to responding to all you guys. And if you've got a question, if you're catching this on the replay too, just say #replay and ask the question, and, you know,
Yeah.
Leah will pop on and maybe give you a reply. Just connect with her, connect to her through her website or just on Instagram or Facebook, and just have a conversation, because I think you notice just by being here and being in energy, and everyone's calling for part 2. So they want a part 2 with Leah Barthell. We might have to do a part 2. Okay, so if we get enough part 2s, all right, if we've got any part 2s, we do a part 2. I think we do part 2, maybe take a deeper dive on. Oh, hold on, what's happening here? Let me. We do a deeper dive on.
Yeah, we can. We didn't even hit any of the things that we were going.
Well, we're going to give you some time to wrap up, right? Because I just want to thank everyone, but most importantly you. But we'll give you the opportunity to close this out by giving people, what's your life hack? What's your tip? If you can leave them with something tonight, so they can go home thinking about how they can do life a little bit better for themselves, be a little bit kinder to themselves, what would that be?
I would always say just to live each day to the fullest. Don't leave anything undone. If you've got a dream or something you're aspiring to, create it, make it happen, strive for it, reach for it. So often there's a beautiful saying that I apologize because I can't remember the author, but when we look behind, we live with regret. When we look in front, we become anxious. But we need to stay in the moment, in the present, because today is a gift. And that is one of the things I know too quickly, like mum dying at 60, dad dying at 24. We don't know what tomorrow holds for us. So I've said this on a previous interview, but I don't want to die with my music inside me. I want to go out and make sure that if something happened tomorrow, they could go, man, she lived a great life. She had the best time. She was surrounded by awesome people. She had so much fun doing it. And, you know, the little things that we can do can change someone's life so much that we don't even realize. It could be a phone call, it could be a text, it can be just taking a moment out of your day to actually check in with someone, or just to do something that can create a difference or create a change. So,
Leah, on that, I'm going to challenge everyone here, and if they're watching it now, live or replay, I want everyone here to think about the one person that they feel they need to reach out to.
Love it.
Whether it's just a text or a call or just a, you know, how are you doing? It is, as we said, it's Movember, it's mental health for males, but not just for males. We're all going through this together. We don't do life by ourselves. And so I think you do that, that's leadership qualities, right? That's actually reaching out to someone and telling them how special they are, you're acknowledging them, and just to know that you're here. So here's my challenge. I want everyone to do that. Right, and come back to this chat and just say done when it's done. Awesome. Because when we see that energy done, we know so many souls have been touched simply by this challenge. And the more people do that, then we'll come back with part 2. Right, we got to give them a task. Task not for me.
And do it with an open heart, no expectations. Even not having an expectation of receiving a reply. Like so many times we get caught up in going, why would I bother? Because they didn't reply. You're doing that because that's what feels right in that moment for you to give that love. There's no expectations. You do that with an open heart. And if that person replies, great. If they don't, they may be busy. They may be dealing with some stuff, but you don't know the impact that has on their world.
Nadine's saying she's reaching out to her brother now, so we already got impact happening there.
Girl, Nadine.
And, you know, look, geez, I want to keep on talking here because, I mean, we might have to cut this up in 2 audios, but we will have you coming back. You know, as you said, things happen for a specific reason. And just last night, I was driving to pick up my son from work. He works at the Como Hotel, and I was thinking about just stuff, and I had someone that came to mind as a song was playing, and I just had these thoughts. And the most weirdest thing is just before you came on, that person called me. Right, so we got at 5:15, right, and we just started, right?
Yeah.
That person called me at 5:15. We had this conversation. I hadn't heard from them for quite a while, and so I thought, okay. So,
well, I'm going to challenge you on that. Is it weird, or did you create that?
well, okay. Well, we created for. Well, that's we got to search for the lesson, right? So, what is it that yet has? Well, what's the lesson I need to get? What's the reframe I need? So, yeah, we created it.
Energetically, you've felt that person, or you've thought of them, and that's synchronicity. That's so beautiful that that person thinks of you in that moment, and you create that. So
okay, Leah, look, again, thank you everyone. We've gone 50 minutes with this. This is pretty cool. All right, so please, if you enjoyed anything that we've got from Leah, just put some feedback, give us some love in the chat. So we want to thank Leah for being here.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's put you back on the gallery so we can see the two of us together. So Leah, again, thank you so much. Guys, thank you for being in the room. We'll be back again. Not sure if we're going to be back in again next week. I'm flying out to the States to do some training, and so my challenge is to bump into some people over there and do some interviews on the spot and get people from over there doing this type of work, and just I'm going to Sedona, right? So I'm going to probably walk into some place in Sedona and just sit down, maybe speak to a psychic or a healer and say, hey, let's have a chat, and can we post this worldwide? I'm going to do that next week. So Nadine's saying thank you. Hope to see you around Cronulla. I didn't even mention about Cronulla. That might have to be part 2, right? Okay. All right, guys, thank you so much. You can hang on here. I'm going to stop the live. We'll catch you guys again very soon. And thank you again to Leah. See you guys.